Howdy everyone, Poacher here with an Age of Magic video, and in today's video we are doing the stat priorities for the medallions that have just come into the game. Keep in mind, these are my personal preferences and how I'll be building heroes. I'll suggest maybe other ways that you could potentially build them. There's no set way for most heroes. There is wiggle room on how you build them, and until we get lockable substats in medallions, it's just a gamble really on what you're going to get. But starting with Flame, I'm going damage reduction as my absolute #1 priority. If I see that come up, I am going to take it. Then armor penetration multiplier, attack damage and critical damage. The way Flame works is the lower her HP or the HP of her allied witches, the more damage she will do. She cannot be healed. She cannot receive shields unless her passive is awakened. So just keep that in mind. If you have damage reduction on her, it's going to be harder for the enemy to kill her, but it's also going to allow her to be in a lower state of health for longer, allowing you to get more damage out of her. So damage reduction, simply to keep her alive for as long as possible. Armor penetration is probably the only hero I've ever put this on, but Flame's damage can get out of control. It's huge. It can become massive damage if the situation is right. So having her able to cut through magic resistance, again, huge. And then the final two, attack damage and critical damage. This is if you want to go for a damage build, but there is merit in going for physical damage reduction and magical damage reduction as well, for the exact same reason, for damage reduction, just to keep her alive as long as possible so she can do as much damage as possible. Her damage is fine as is. I am just going to build her more damage because with Clan Wars coming up, there are just tankier heroes in the game, so hopefully I can cut through them with Flame if the situation ever requires me to use her. But again, if I see damage reduction stats come up, I will take them as well. And it's pretty much a gamble. Any of these stats are good, but until we get lockable substats, it is what it is. Just find a good one with a good ranking and go for it. Next up, we have Sekhmun. Just make him as tanky as possible. Remember, Sekhmun's job in the team is to absorb damage. He does not have a taunt, but he is able to redirect damage the enemy takes, not the enemy, sorry, his allies, to himself. So having that damage come to him and then being able to reduce it is going to keep him alive as long as possible, which furthermore increases the damage mitigation he applies to his allies. So just make him as tanky as possible. That's all that matters, and he should be good. Pretty straightforward. Just make him tank. He's a tank, make him a tank. Him, she, I don't know what it is. Either way, damage reduction. Scara. Now, Scara's an interesting hero. People always say she dies quite easily, and she does. She really does. So with that, and it's probably the theme of the goos is damage reduction. I think damage reduction works really well on all the goos, so that is a #1. It isn't a #1 priority. I just think it's really valuable. Obviously, you want to go damage into her. Attack damage, critical damage. You can go crit chance. I just feel like health steal might be a little bit more valuable. Really depends. She can do a lot of damage, so if she's able to heal off that, then you mix in Sekhmun, who is able to take damage away from her, and you make him tankier. Yeah, she can do a lot of damage, so I think she's going to benefit from health steal and damage reduction. Just let her do her thing. She's really good at buff removal as well. I actually use her more for buff removal than I use her for damage, because her basic can strip buffs away, which is really, really nice for a basic ability. Essentially, an ability with no cooldown that can remove buffs comes in handy so much, more than you think. So yeah, again, if you're not happy with it, roll whatever you want. Completely up to you. Next up, we have Omphis. Now, Omphis can do some nice damage. I went damage reduction for #1 hit points, physical fortitude multiplier, magic fortitude multiplier. Again, this is probably the first champion I ever use this on. He's never really targeted by the enemy. He's not a priority target. Damage reduction is just there. He can... Again, I use him more for what he offers to the team, in the sense that if my team misses, he's going to come through with a nice little support attack, and he is able to strip shields again, which is really, really nice. The only place I really use him is in raid now. I rarely use goos, and I don't do tournament. I'm not a tournament player, but with more heroes coming out and increasingly more ways heroes can apply shield through new factions. There's a lot of factions that can apply shields. His basic is almost worth more than anything else in his kit. So just keep him alive and just let him be a support unit. The damage comes from your Scara and your Ciri, mostly Ciri. Ciri is the damage dealer. And if you just build a whole support team around her, a support structure, and just let her be a free spirit doing all the damage she wants to do, then you go for it. I just think Omphis primary role is just a support unit. Next we have Inpus. Inpus, a very interesting healer. Again, most of his kit is based around damage. Damage reduction, I've gone on him again just to make him as tanky as possible. Attack damage, critical damage, and health steal. There is very few ways the Goose can heal. Number one is through sacrificial blood from Ciri, and there are slight ways they can heal through Inpus as well. So I think health steal on him would be good. His niche is the health reduction. He can permanently reduce enemies' HP. It's really nice. I don't think it's as effective as it was meant to be. I think it just, yeah, it doesn't do huge health reduction. I wish it increased, or it did more, but maybe that changes with Medallions. Who knows? If you pump up his attack and his crit damage and you just let him do his thing. Remember, he's also got an execute on him as well, so being able to reduce the enemy's HP below, I believe, 30% or 33%, and then being able to execute with him is gonna be wonders for your team. So yeah, those are the stats in the Medallions that are currently out. It's a good selection. I think Goose are still a pretty decent squad in the game. Again, I just mainly use them for raid, but I have zero doubt they're still relevant in PvP. And again, with Clan Wars coming around, there'll be much more ways to use them as well. So just keep that in mind. But there you go. Those are the stats and how I'm going to build these heroes. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I will answer it to the best of my ability. Or around the world. Until next time, please take care of yourself.